Music Sunday at Mike's. Welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to show up. I always start these out by saying that I'm always thankful for you spending a little bit of your time with me. Time is, of course, a valuable thing. And of course, it's just something to me that somebody like you would spend a little bit of your time with me. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Um, while we wait for more people to join in on the chat, I will talk about things that went on here in the studio. My cat is making a lot of noise in the background. Hold on. I'm going to shut this door. I love him to death, but that cat is just super duper noisy. It's the only thing. It's about 6:30 in the morning. That's what I have to look forward to. I want to drug him sometimes, but I love him. This week I got into shipment. If you guys haven't already seen it on my regular content on this channel, you can find a video that I just released the other day where I was unboxing a couple of guitars that I got in from Japan. And let me make some adjustments here. Ben's in the house. Good evening. Doing well. Thank you so much for. Hey, Michael Watson in the house. Here we go. Everybody's here. Thank you so much, guys, for showing up. Yeah, I got a couple of things in, and really excited about that as always. Here, let me move this light a little closer. Yeah, that's better. And that's always awesome. It's a great thing to unpack a box and to find everything in one piece. It's just, again, it's Schrodinger's cat. You know, it's either broken or unbroken, and you don't know until you open the box. But in this case, again, I was blessed to have them come in one piece. Tommy Mack in the house. Happy Sunday to you too. Um, so there is that. The bass, I actually am ahead. I actually filmed right after that one myself demoing the Fender bass against a Harley Benton bass, and I filmed that. It's a good thing because the very next day the Fender bass was sold, so that bass is gone. Um, but a couple of things that just to preview that video, that'll be the next one on my regular content versus kind of battle between a Harley Benton JB75 and the Harley Benton. I'm sorry, the Fender 62 reissue. And so I have my thoughts on it. you know, um, everybody knows that they're great guitars for the value, Harley Benton's, and they're getting better all the time. They're improving. Like I said, they're moving into that tier that Epiphone dominated. Now Harley Benton's are going to start dominating that for the next 2 decades. If Epiphone's game plan was any kind of reveal of the plot of how that usually goes, so there's that. But I I really like uh, the. Oh, hold on, guys. 1 second. One other thing. Sorry, a little distracted here. I was warming up the room before I came in because it is freezing here in Amsterdam. It's going to be a low of 1 tonight. So I was heating up the room here, but it's getting a little bit too warm. I like the fact that they're stepping in there, and I like the fact that they do have good quality for the money. However, I will say that honestly, the weight issue is something that I have a problem with. That Harley Benton is an extremely heavy bass compared to the Fender. That's just a fact of the matter. And there's that. So I would gig if I was a gigging bass player, then the Fender would be a better idea. Uh, for recording, either one would do because you'd be sitting down. I'd be sitting down with that Harley Benton if I was when I was recording, I was sitting down. So recording, either one will do. Tone wise, you know, it really came down to just an issue of whether you like, a round not dull, but a really round bass tone, which is what I got out of the Harley Benton, as opposed to a very uh, how can I put this? A very poppy kind of sound that you got out of the Fender. So either one will do. Again, it's just it's apples for for courses, horses for courses. It really depends upon your taste. That's what that came down to. So there is that. Um, it wasn't very well this week. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to the live stream tonight. But I seem to be getting better. It just seems to be the ebb and flow of my illness. Ruins my Saturdays, and I start to recover by Sunday. But I am glad to be here tonight with you guys. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I think we got enough people in the live stream to get started here. Um, a couple of interesting things. Tonight's live stream is called "Guitars Are a Funny Thing." Guitars are a funny thing. And or the alternate title for that was based on a suggestion at the end of last live stream. Why don't I talk about, should you have one guitar or not? Somebody brought up. So we'll call this "Guitars Are a Funny Thing." The alternate title would be "Should You Really Own One Guitar?" Now I've kind of covered that before. I've been down that road, but I thought, since it was asked of me to retread it a little again, at least this time I would do it from a different angle, looking at it a little bit differently, but not specifically homing in on that point. As a matter of fact, there's so many points to this. That's why I titled this "Guitars Are a Funny Thing," because they are. I was the last time I was in LA, which has been too long now. I went on a guitar safari, of course, and I remember how excited I was because I found a very rare Gibson Les Paul that I had been looking for, and I just so happened to come across one in LA while I was there. And I remember going visiting, stopping by my parents' house and saying to my dad, he was sitting there as usual watching sports. And I said, "Oh, Dad, I just got this such and such guitar." And he just kind of shook his head. And I told my Uncle Carlton this story. I was talking to him last night on the phone and kind of previewing what I was going to talk about tonight. And he said, "Yeah, man, outside of guitarists, most people just view these things as being made out of strings and wood, and that's the only way they're going to view it. They don't see it any other way. And you could try to explain it to them, or you know, try to make them see it, but they really won't." And of course, this is going to extend to our family, our friends, close acquaintances who have no interest in music instruments, particular guitars, or don't really have a background in creative arts in that regard. So guitars are a funny thing because they really only matter to again a very niche market that we're all a part of. You're here tonight listening to me talk about them. So I would say that anybody watching here tonight definitely falls into that category. But that's just the truth of it. And when my dad, because he's like, "Why is my son, investing his money in these guitars?" Well, he didn't understand, what that guitar was in terms of not just its intrinsic value, but also what it meant in terms of the history of it as well. Because as you know, I'm deeply interested in the history of guitars. And if they gave out PhDs in the subject, I might actually try to put myself up for one. But fascinated with the subject. But as Uncle Carl was alluding to the rest of the world, it really doesn't mean anything. And I always have had in myself a viewpoint towards make music, and the music being the most important thing. You know, on the should you have one guitar thing or not, if you find yourself with with a healthy collection of guitars, and I'll say a healthy collection is six or more. If you find yourself with a healthy collection of guitars, but you're always grabbing for one in particular, and it's the one that inspires you and gives you, that artistic spark that you need in order to be creative, then probably pretty much, well, if the rest of them were to somehow disappear, you wouldn't find yourself being hurt too much. And also, uh, for the sake of just of getting in the way. See, instruments and equipment are great for capturing things, but they can get in the way of the creative process as well. Is another way of looking at this. And you've got too many, if it's onion soup, but you've got, eight or nine varieties of onion in your kitchen, and you're trying to decide, well, what what particular variety of onion do I want to use? Of course, they always say that making music is cooking. It is to a certain extent, but I think you might have a little bit too much variety there, and it may be getting in the way of your cooking, your creative process. So there's that. So make music and don't worry about gear. Anthony in the house. Hey, sir, how you doing? Tommy Mack is why. I'm sorry, I already saw Tommy. Sorry, Tommy. Anthony Thornhill in the house. We are doing just fine. Good to see you. Talking about guitars. And we're going to get into some interesting things tonight because we're going to talk about guitars in general tonight. I want to cover some interesting stuff that I've dug up. I want to share some things with you here tonight that I think you guys will find really interesting. I certainly did. So let me continue. So the one guitar thing, again, for me, for up until I would say the last decade, I pretty much will have been a one guitar guy. And it's pretty much will have been a Telecaster. And pretty much, well, that's all I used for all of my recordings and live stage, all my gigs. That wasn't always the same Telecaster. Well, there were three or four that rotated over a course of time, but and I in no way felt that I needed to have anything else. Oh, what would this tune sound like with a Les Paul? That got in a little bit later when I wanted to see. Okay, you know, with guitars when you're recording, you pan them, you played the parts, you double the parts. Sometimes they'll even quadruple the parts, but basically you double your parts, pan them to the left and right, and spread them wide, and it gives you a bigger sound. I think when you start laying layer and layer and layer of guitar on top of each other, it starts to distort a lot of things, and also it fights against what you're trying to do. You can layer with two or three, but when you're doing that, it would be cool to have a Telecaster over here and a Les Paul over here. And that was the kind of thinking that led me into starting to get into Les Pauls and using them. The song on the Yasanoki Ants in the Pantry album, Belly Dancer, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, using a Telecaster over here and actually a P90 Les Paul over here, or vice versa. I can't remember. But and it just came with great results too, doubling that and then panning it, and on both guitars. So the one guitar thing, I think, from a creative standpoint, it's a great thing. But when the rubber hits the road, I just don't think that it's the reality, because even as a recording artist, you're going to have several different guitars, in the studio at least. On the stage, you may, okay, this one telly I can pull off all these sounds, and that's or this Les Paul I can pull off all these sounds. So there's that, but I don't think even for the casual. Then when you talk about the casual guitarist, the bedroom guitarist, a home enthusiast, I guess you would call it. Um, yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a thing where you're going to be marketed to all the time to try and buy new things in ways that artists aren't. See, artists are given instruments and they're given stuff because if somebody's seen playing XYZ, then this could equate in the minds of some marketers to XYZ equals X amount of sales. So the bedroom guy is the one that's always under the bombardment of marketing. Buy, 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 buy. And we've covered that. We've talked about that. So if you guard against that and you've got one or two or three that you feel comfortable with, and you're just a bedroom guy, then even there you see that, of course, you can get away with one. And there are certainly many guitarists out there, professional, who have only used one guitar, famously. But that person, even though that is the guitar that they use, it's not the only one that they own. I'm willing to more than bet. Don Juan Campbell in the house. Welcome, welcome. Everybody's here. Thank you guys for showing up. Now, guitar is a funny thing because these days people have been saying that guitar is dead. That guitar music really, the guitar and guitar music doesn't really resonate out in the commercial music world. Now, I'll tell you, the indie world is vibrant and full of what it used to be. The landscape, music landscape used to be 20, 25 years ago, a wide variety of things, and with a lot of guitar in it. And so just because the corporate heads who aren't music, there's some of those guys grew up in music, and some of them were musicians themselves, the older guys, but they really don't care, and they're going to go whatever makes them money. And if guitars are out, then hey, what's in? And usually those are the ones that are making those dictates. So, but guitar is a funny thing because they say that guitars are dead, but that's not true at all. The market, certainly during COVID, with that 400% increase of sales, show that there are still certainly something. At least again, when you get into those groups that I talked about, the three groups, I'll cover that in a minute. But the problem is that music is secondary. Tommy Mac 16. I use my couch acoustic nearly all the time. Yeah, there you go. Couch acoustic, couch Les Paul. However, I like looking at the collection hanging on the wall. You're sitting there, you're playing, you look over, and you go, ah. Yeah, I know. and, and when I'm inspired, I love plugging each one and playing around. Yeah, again, that's why I said the one guitar thing. See, we're human. We got human nature, and we have some shared experiences as human beings. Obviously, I knew when Tommy said that. I like looking at my collection hanging on the wall. I knew exactly what he meant by that. While you're sitting there playing something, you look over and you say, "Yeah, okay, I got something nice over there." you know, it's when the shelves are empty that you start thinking, just, "Oh my God, I'm poor. I only got one guitar." And again, this is the marketing. I've kind of broke free. I've always been free of that myself. So if I have just one, I'm happy. If I've got a few, I'm happy. But I'll be honest to say that's always nice to have a few. But as I was saying there, the problem these days is not that guitar music isn't heavily featured in the pop machine, the music machine, commercial machine. The problem is that music has become secondary in itself. The music is secondary to the circus, usually in the case of commercial artists, than the circus that surrounds it. The circus is more important than the music. Music is just vehicle in which to launch off the circus, if you guys know what I mean. Especially now, music is secondary. You know, music is secondary, um, and as a result, artists who are focusing on music being the primary important thing in the equation uh, are not prone, I think, to want to go in the direction that the commercial music seems to be wanting to lead young artists in. And that leads you to the indie front, which is booming now because people are starting to wake up and say, "Hey, you know what? I like guitar music. Where can I go find it?" Or my band is a garage band. We play rock. Where can I release our album at? I'm a one man band, like myself. Yeah, I'm a one man band. I'm thinking to myself, hey, the drummer wants to know where are we going to, how are we going to release this and avoid the corporate machine, as we've always done. And so the indies, again, just hitting on that again and just showing my pleasure, is really starting to show an upswing. So the music is primary there, just because everybody, says the guitar is dead. Well, it may be dead in commercial music, but it is certainly alive and thriving in the indie scene. So there's that. Um, Now, I touched upon this a couple of clicks back, where I was talking about the subject of one guitar. And I talked about the collector, the flipper, and the musician. It's three groups, if you guys recall that conversation. And, all of us, as I was saying then, and I'll say again now, fall within these three categories. Some of us breach two of the categories. Um, some, like Joe Bonamassa, are all three. You just got to admire that. Not just him, but he's a good example of being a collector, a flipper, and a musician. I myself, I'm a musician and a flipper. I would put myself. I don't call myself a collector. One of the conversations I was having with my uncle Carlton, who's in the Blues Hall of Fame, Blues Hall of Famer. You guys know him very well. Played with a lot of who's who of everybody in his career. He said, I'm not giving any of my guitars to my children. I'm giving them to you, Mike. I was like, okay, uncle. He says, because I know I've seen you with guitars. I know how you respect them, love them, you take care of them, and you know what they are. And it's also for the family as well. It's like our heritage. And I said, yeah, okay, I can dig that. So I, in no means, I have guitars that I'm not even in possession of yet, that are yet to be in my possession. So I am in no means a collector. I'm not. I've discovered that about myself. My way that I like to rock it is I'll go back to my Telecaster playing, is that I would flip different Telecasters. I'd say, okay, I'm tired of this, until I settled on Monica Butterscotch, my made in Japan Fender. I love that one. It was made out of it wasn't made out of expensive woods or anything like that, but it just resonated and sounded good. So there's that. So you're going to fall in one of those three categories, and in all cases, the one guitar rule would be the exception, not the norm, in my opinion. It would be the exception and not the norm. And I find that interesting because, I, on this channel, talk about avoiding gas, gear acquisition syndrome. Yet at the same time, I feed into it. I recognize that when I unbox something, for example, that leads to gas with people. And although my attention may purely be just to say, hey, look at this. This is cool. I thought it was cool and I want to share it with you. If you notice, I never openly talk about, you can, hey, call me up and you can buy this if you're interested, because people know that already. And so that's where being a YouTuber, you know, kind of sucks a little bit, because you could be accused of that, and rightly so. Just been, when people just broad brush every YouTuber as being, a merchandise salesman, a guitar salesman, or whatever salesman. And whereas that's true in a lot of cases, some of us really are just here for the pleasure of sharing the information and trying to obtain the things that we talk about, so that we don't just talk about them in the abstract, we actually talk about them in the real. And that's a difficult wire to balance. And so, as a collector, a flipper, or the musician, in me, there's a little collector in me, I guess. I guess there's a little bit of me. I guess it has to be, there has to be, because of the things that I seek to share with you. But in this category, wherever you may fall or fall in several, just keep in mind that don't get in over your head. Don't buy things on credit. Don't buy any guitars that you can't pay cash for. And I'm not, buying guitars on credit. I, you can do it, but I would advise pay cash. And that will limit your gas too, because you'll have to save up, or you have to think very carefully before you buy something, and that will, as opposed to, okay, I can get this, I just have to make payments for the next year or two on it. you know those can add up. 25 here, 24, 30 there, 40 there. The next thing you know, you got yourself a $200 or $300 nut every month on guitars that you bought on credit. And that may work for you, but in most cases it may not. You don't want to be in that kind of position. So to limit gas, I always say the great limiter of gas is cash. Stick your purchases, when and if possible, to cash, and you will find yourself being a happier lad. And yeah, you can have more than one guitar. That's all right. Most people do. But the guitars that you have are not a drag on your other responsibilities. Don Juan Campbell in the house. I still have four guitars, two Strats, one standard Tele, thin line Tele with humbucker, which satisfies this specialty thing for session work. Yeah, there you go. But that's it. I'm a weekend warrior, working musician. Keep it simple, Stoner. That's right. The KISS method. Keep it simple, Stoner. I agree with that. And so, yeah, me, myself, and I, like I said, I'd like to have two guitars if I'm recording. And that's only because I want to differentiate between those. I know what those two guitars will always be. It'll be a Tele or a Les Paul, not particular. Hopefully, good ones. Um, and a bass guitar. And like I said, that Harley Benton will do me just as much as the Fender. You know, so that's the keep it simple Stoner kind of principle there. Don Juan Campbell, keep it simple, smarty. I the old way is keep it simple, Stoner. But I date myself. Yeah, you're talking that gas syndrome, and yes, lack of cash will limit. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you stick it to the cash scene, what you got in your wallet. Hopefully not dust, but if you stick to that, you'll find yourself a lot better. Mickey Newman is in the house. Good evening, Mickey, sir. Welcome. Thank you so much for showing up, Mickey. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Patrick, Gene, LeBanc, Hardy in the house. It's 4:29 p.m. in Houston, Texas. So good evening, family. Good evening to you too. Thank you so much for showing up. Everybody, excuse my loud cat there. He's got something to say. Again, like I said, this is what I wake up to in the morning. So I just want to touch upon that, guys, because I think the one guitar thing is not really a rubber hits the road kind of reality thing. Hey, thank you, man. Hit the like button. He's right. The math is a little off here. We got 11 watching, 7 people with the thumbs up. Hit it up, guys. Hit it up, hit it up, hit it up. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit it up if you watch this in the rerun as well. The rewind. I do appreciate it if you do. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I got something really cool to show you guys. I got something really interesting. Keeping with guitars. Guitars are a funny thing. We can stick with that theme. Why do I always find myself sinking as the night goes down? I find myself getting lower and lower in this chair. Doesn't matter what I wear. I need a new chair. I really do. Nothing fancy. IKEA will do, but well, I'm close enough to Sweden. I can actually go to the first IKEA. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I need a new chair. This is not working anymore. I'm getting a little bit too sophisticated and old for this. So I got this in, guys. I think if you saw my regular channel, you saw this guitar. So this is the Yamaha SL700S that I'm a collector and a home player, plus many other hobbies. Yeah, we all got other hobbies too. That's why I say you gotta save your cash for that. Those other hobbies like gas, rent, heat. So this is the 1980. So this is from 1980, guys. This is a 1980 in pristine condition, as you can see. From 1980, Yamaha SL700. A very nice, and take a look at that headstock. So you guys didn't have to pay extra for it. No off charge on this one from Gibson. Studio Lord. Yep. 700S. Really like that on the back. I think that's really cool. Now that's true. That's an aging job. And original, all original, completely original. And one interesting thing I didn't know until I read the manual, which I'm going to share with you, is that these are actually push-pull pots. Is it somewhat heavy? Yes, I would put this at 9 pounds. I've gotten pretty good at this, and I would put this at 9.2 pounds. So for a Les Paul, not bad, not bad. It's on the heavier side. I like mine around 8.5. I think is the perfect Les Paul. So it's 7 clicks above that, but not super bad. The amazing thing is the neck. Now on that Epiphone 56 Gold Top P90 reissue, I talked about how the neck felt like a 59 to 60 transition neck. How it wasn't as girthy as a 59, but it wasn't as slim tapered as a 60s. This neck, I would say, is a 58, 59 transition neck. It's got some beef on it all the way up and down. It's not quite a 58 neck, not quite a 59 neck. It's got some girth to it. Closer to 59, I guess I would say, than a 58, but it's got aspects of 58 on it. What else can I say before I get to the next subject? Yeah, all original. So this is going to go to Fern. He is going to, as usual, all gear goes to Fern. He is going to take a look at it, make sure it's in great condition. Mickey Newman. SL had push-pull pots. So yeah, it's got push-pull pots. I didn't know that. It sure does. So you can do a couple of single and split coil kind of things there with it. There's a lot of configurations. Again, I like that because my Stoner, if you guys recall the Stoner Les Paul that I had here, that also had push-pull on it as well. And it was a Japanese-made guitar, made in Japan, marketed here in the Netherlands. So this is quite similar to that. I would say actually they are comparable in weight to each other. So there's that. No, maybe the Stoner's slight was like an 8.8. This one is slightly heavier than that. My PRSE Swamp Ash guitar came in at 9 pounds and 3 ounces, but very beautiful work of art. Yeah. Again, it's not a boat Les Paul, but it's up there. But what's interesting, guys, about this particular guitar is I bought it in Japan, uh, and it came with its original case. Came with its original case. And not only did it come with its original case, it came with all of its original case candy, including its original manual. This is the original owner's manual in Japanese from 1980 for this Yamaha. It came with everything. The warranty is in there, the manual, a couple of things in there, and quite impressive. It's really a time capsule. This thing is and again, this is what I'm talking about with Japanese instruments, is that yeah, you will find some that are just time capsule, as was put down in the comment section of the video, and it is true in this case. And to have the case candy with it is quite exceptional. But one of the interesting things about this case candy is reading through it. Now, guitars are a funny thing because we you know with the older stuff we have suppositions about how it's constructed, what it's made of. Some of that stuff because it may be an overseas guitar. Studio Lords like this. By the way, this came in the S standard, 700S and the 700C, which is a custom. So you will see the Studio Lord 700C, the customs out there as well. The 700 in this series was the only one that had a custom of it as well. But here you can see on the owner's manual list, there's the 400, the 500, the 600, the 700, the 700S, the 700C, and then the 800S. So that was in 1980. You can see that this 700 was at almost at the top of the pile. Mike, may I ask how much a guitar like that go for in US dollars? One of these days, I want a Japanese made guitar. Well, you have to look at whatever import. There's no VAT, I think you have to pay in the States. You may have to pay import tax, but I don't even think that applies in some states. But guitars like these can be found in the 800 all the way up to the $1,500 range, depending on condition and things of that nature. So you'll have to figure in your cost of shipping as well, which is to the States is going to cost you about $100, or or on plus side of $100. So if that helps. But we have a lot of myths and things and suppositions. And one of the suppositions about the Studio Lords that I was reading, because of course you're welcome, sir, always welcome. About the Studio Lords, is the 700 and the 800 in particular, is about the fretboard material. Now, on the internet, over the years, and obviously this guitar is 44 years old. So in the last 44 years, there's been a lot of mythos built around this guitar. And again, that's why it's exciting to have one in my hands. So this is, again, because of the headstock, in the period of time that this was made, between 76, 77 to 80, 81, that's what I consider to be the so-called lawsuit era. Although, again, it was a cease and desist letter. There was no lawsuit. The guitars that were produced during that period definitely fall Grecos, Yamahas, things of that nature from that time. Ibanez. They all have this feature in common, that they have that Gibson open book headstock. But the materials that these are made of have always been called in question. Some say, oh, well, it's probably birch. It's probably this. It's probably that. That's a poly on that. That's not nitro, and this, that, and the other. Well, actually, I've got the owner's manual now from 1980. It's in Japanese, fortunately, and fortunately, it's in hiragana and katakana, which is which is perfect because that's what I read. And so it gives you details in there about the breakdown of this guitar. FRC, welcome. Love those made in Japan Les Pauls. All those brands you mentioned have really gone up in price in the last 5 years, like everything, I guess. Yeah, uh, there's still some ones out there that people don't know about that they will. But like for example, that other Yamaha I had in the 335, the quality of those guitars are excellent. You can still grab like that 335 Yamaha for what I consider to be a bargain because it's far better made than the equivalent Epiphone, which is by the way is much more in terms of price. And also it's just got that vibe on it because it's usually 20, 30 years old or more, like this one. So it's true that everybody knows about the Love Rocks, everybody knows about Grecos, but there's still some out there that folks don't know about that can still be had. The Yamaha Studio Lord series is not one of them. People do know about these. But having the owner's manual and be able to read through this and to identify every aspect of this guitar, what it's made of, and not only that, but they were also kind enough here to go through all of the through the SL400 through the 800 and tell you what the building materials are, what it's made out of, and things of that nature. Now, interestingly enough, now here's the thing that I found interesting on the internet. They were saying that the fretboard on the 700 and the 800, because they're darker than you would find, and the 700 custom as well, is an ebony fretboard. That this is ebony, and you would look at that, and you would say to yourself, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." Especially when you know that the 400, the 500, and the 600 fretboard material was, you got it, rosewood. It was rosewood. When you get to the 700S and the 700C and the 800S in this series, they changed the wood of the fretboard material to rosewood, to what people have said and thought over the years is ebony, and it certainly looks like it. It ain't no ebony. It's not ebony. As a matter of fact, it's something so strange that that I had to look it up because I was unfamiliar with it. Um, komoku, komoku. So it's here rosewood, 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 komoku. And I said to myself, what the heck is that? Had no idea. And I looked it up, and the only reference that I could find to it was a wood material that was being used on high-end automobiles inside in the interiors. And I said to myself, okay, that's interesting. I'll have to dig a little bit deeper into exactly what that is. As it turns out, its Japanese name is kauri. Kauri. And kauri is another word for the English term agathis. Agathis. So the fretboard material on this turns out to be that komoku is they take thin slices of agathis, they composite them down. So there you have composite ebony. It was just mentioned by Dinro Zero. My kick guitar is a composite ebony. This is composite agathis. And the reason that it was considered an upgrade over rosewood is because it's considered to be a fine material. That's why you find it in high-end cars, the dash materials. I think in Mercedes, as I seem to recall. I'm not quite too sure, but uh, it is interesting to me. I've never had a guitar that had essentially agathis fretboard material before. Now, how does it feel? It feels like ebony. It does. It has it feels like somewhere between ebony and rosewood. So, uh, just to kind of give you another idea about how broad a term agathis is, by the way, agathis is a genus of 21 species. We talked about that, how you can have a wood, but it's got many different genuses to it. Of 21 species of evergreen trees in the family of conifers, actually. So it's actually is in the Christmas tree family. That is grown in the southern hemisphere. It is easily worked wood with characteristics somewhat similar to alder. A musical instrument is primarily used for guitar bodies. Guitar bodies. And that's true too. As you know, my 2002, 2003 Squire in there is a full-size Squire Strat is made from that, and works just fine. And I just have never heard of it being used for a fretboard before, fretboard material. So and considered by the Japanese, by the way, at that time to be an upgrade. An upgrade. Now, you hear everybody out there again. Guitars are a funny thing because people will poo-poo and Agathis body. You just Google on any chat, guitar chat, Agathis body guitar, and see the opinions on it. And most of them are not positive. I am in the positive camp because I don't think there's a problem. Um, but they don't. It's frowned upon and considered to be a cheap wood. Well, how can it be both considered to be a cheap wood, and in the case of the Japanese mine in 1980 to be an upgrade? They could have easily used ebony. It's not like there was any restrictions, and it wasn't like they had a shortage of it. No, they chose this material, this kauri, because they thought it was an upgrade. They thought it was an upgrade. Kingdom Funding, I missed your talk so much. Hey, I appreciate that. That makes me feel good that you guys don't mind me going on these rants. But but you can't beat this. This is the owner's manual from 1980, and it spells out. By the way, this is not poly. This is nitro. You know, and it's so there's that, and it's it's not a pancake body, but it is a three-piece body, and it's a three-piece neck, which is typical of Les Pauls from that time. This is constructed in the same manner that a Les Paul of that period would be made. The only exception, again, and something I'm not unhappy about, is it doesn't have the fret nibs. I hate the fret nibs, and so the rest of the body is your typical combination of mahogany and maple. I love that. It says maple on here. So maple. I know a dog in Japan from my old neighborhood named Maple, sweet little dog. So it always tickles me to read that. But standard, everything else, is as you would find on a USA Gibson, with the exception of the fretboard material. So again, just fascinating little. So that definitively kills any questions about the materials used on the SL Studio Lord series. That pretty much is definitive word as far as I'm concerned. And again, that's a good thing, to me, because it's like that Mythbusters program. I can't like to fancy myself sometimes in that role. I do. Let's bust this myth. Let's bust it right out. Let's cut through the fog of time, 44 years, and let's get to the truth of of things. And that way, we can say to ourselves, it doesn't matter what's on the name on the headstock, it's the quality of what is being represented. Now, as far as the pickups are concerned, to my ears, these sound like Analytical 2 pickups. And as you know, Analytical 2 pickups are my least favorite. I prefer Analytical 5 and 3 and 5. Uh, and but um, they're not monophonic, which is after 44 years saying something. One of the big complaints is that the lead pickup on these usually burn out. That's not the issue here. The pots and everything seem to be working. Like I said, the fern will be the final word. But there's that. And again, this manual tells you exactly what kind of pickups are in each of those models as well. So if there's any questions about what exact pickups were in a Studio Lord from that time period, they're in the manual again. So that's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of a cool thing to me. Maybe I kind of geek out a little bit on it because I really love it. It's really exciting to be able to have a little bit of history. I consider this history. I don't know how many of these are floating around still after 44 years. Um, and There's that. Again, age sometimes coupled with an intrinsic value props up the value of an instrument in the minds of the collector or the flipper or the musician. But again, armed with knowledge and knowing what it is that's there will help you make good financial decisions as well. I would take this 1980 Studio Lord over any of the currently new this year produced Epiphones. What's the difference? No fret nubs, check. Open book headstock, check. The wood quality of this is better than the woods they're using currently on the Epiphones. I'll tell you that much. Again, 21 Genuses, different price points in there, and it's poly and it's nitro, not poly. I mean, again, and it's cheaper. It can be found for cheaper than the current episode. So what are you doing? I mean, really, if you're in it to get the best bang for your buck, then what are you really doing? If you're not looking around. Patrick, good information. Only if that guitar could talk. Yeah, it'd be in Japanese. I translated for you. Wakarimashita. Hi, wakarimashita. Yeah. But can tell us what was going on in the zone back in the day. Yeah, I hit that zone in 95, so 15 years after this was made. That's another funny thing is that I'm in Japan 15 years after this is made, and this thing is floating around somewhere in Japan. That we were both in Japan at the same time, me and this guy. So, that's the other thing. That's the other thing I kind of geek out about. It's kind of funny and cool in a weird way, but it just shows it was a long time ago too. Um, but information, knowledge is. I've talked about that guy. Knowledge is your king because when you got that kind of knowledge, and you can break free of the marketing. You can break free of the Bernays, the buy. You can break free of you got to have the latest newest thing. Some of this old stuff is way cooler. Way cooler. Just saying. Mickey Newman, pretty sure old SL was rosewood fretboard and maple agathis laminated top on a mahogany body. Nope. Nope. The SL400S is a maple body with mahogany body, maple cap with rosewood fretboard. That's the same for the 500, the 600. When you get to the 700, you've got a mahogany body with a maple cap and this kauri as your fretboard material. So Again, I'm using the manual from 1980 as my reference point from now on. Everything else, you know. Laminate top? No, this is not a laminate top either. Ugh, no, no, no. I know laminate tops, and that's not a laminate. Maybe when you get down into the 400 and the 600, those would be the ones that would have the laminate tops. Maybe. On Campbell, as long as it plays well, it's all good. Yeah. With a guitar that still have information it's canning, I think I would keep everything as is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, again, you don't. You show respect. You and I'm not going to let this go to anybody who I think is going to monkey around with. This thing has stayed miraculously, and in this day and age, in this market, miraculously in one piece over 44 years. We can't say the same about ourselves. At one point, we broke a leg, an arm, or skinned a knee. This thing has kept itself in one piece, and I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. Nor in the case of this one, am I going to sell it to that guy either. No. Of course, once you buy, you're free to do whatever, but you'd be a fool. You'd be a fool. This is a museum piece in kind of in sort of a way, a little bit. Getting to be, getting there. So I geek out over stuff like that. Um, uh, you can geek out over stuff without having to, put it into bankruptcy. You know, there's the Japanese term otaku, and these are guys who just throw everything into a hobby, and it can be self-destructive. Guitars are a funny thing. They can bring you joy, and they can bring you great misery. And they can bring together a romance, or they can break one up. And my uncle Carlton said he had a choice between him and his guitar and his ex-wife and his wife, now ex-wife. He chose the guitar. He says, I took my guitar and I walked out of the house and I kept going. Because, you know, this is one of those things. Mike speaking big facts only if I have a time machine. Yeah, if only. I always wish that. I wish back in '95 I was collecting back then. Again, I was a one guitar. I had my guitar, and I was a keyboard player in my first tours when I was working for the Japanese agency. I wasn't playing guitar. It wasn't until I started my own band that I started playing guitar. So I wasn't really focused. I had a guitar. I was happy with it, and again, I wasn't into the I got to have 10 or 20 of them. I didn't see the need for it. So I've always been kind of that way. This is actually atypical of me to have several, but again, I'm a small dealer, so it makes sense. Seamus O'Brien, top of the morning, afternoon, evening to you. I know audiophiles who are prepared to live on packet soup to fund their hobby. Gas does not extend. I always talk about the golf guy, the guy who's got to have that new Wilson club set that's encrusted with diamonds and was blessed by Tiger Woods, horse. That's mean. Uh, well, that's what they were. Um, yeah, the gas extends out in a lot of hobbies, and the cure to all of it is to keep a cash only kind of thing going. Keep it on a cash basis, and don't allow your bank account to get low as a result of that either. But it will keep you honest. Cash keeps you honest. You know, it really does. When you're just tapping all the time, tapping, you're not thinking. It's not as because you're taking that step out of counting, taking the money, holding it in your hand, and actually giving out. And that has some meaning. That's why I always talk about transactional things have meaning to them. When you're just tapping, swiping, then it kind of takes a layer out of there, and it can be dangerous because you can overswipe, you can overtap. So something to think about as well. You know, Again, it's the history of things, guys. That's my draw. I'm not trying to sell you, but at the same time, I'm not not because again, it's my business. But I am more leaning towards It's like Indiana Jones. He was an architect, but he got out in the field and he got dirty. And the Indiana professor side, the Professor Jones in me, is the one that wants to bring this stuff to you. The go get 'em, Indiana Jones in me. Well, that aspect is there too. But I like to think of myself more as, again, trying to share info, get these things. Hey, everybody's talking about that. Let's get one in. Let's go get one. Let's find one. Let's bring it in, and let's figure this one out together. So, guitars are a funny thing. They can bring people together. They can divide people as well. How many bands have broke up because they were arguing with their guitar player? Or how many great bands came together because they had just the perfect guy? Guitars are a funny thing. They're a funny thing. Divide, and combine. They're powerful things. But it's the music that's actually the guitar in itself. It's the music that comes out. So therefore, getting back to the points I was talking about at the beginning of tonight's discussion about music being secondary. No, if you put music first, then all the good aspect. If you put guitar music, or if you put creative music, not commercialized, churned out pop, synth pop crap. But if you really put your creative juices to work and it happens to be on the guitar, then guitars are a funny thing. They can mm, lead you to getting a YouTube channel and talking about them, meeting people from all over the world, different parts of the world, sharing things, their thoughts and ideas on things. It can lead to a lot of great things. And so if you got just one and it has that kind of power, I guess if you got two, you got double that. I guess. Is that how that works? So that is tonight's discussion. Um, I hope the person who requested that hasn't showed up here, but if you watch this in the rerun, this one's for you since you requested it. Um, I hope that just looks at you know the one guitar thing from a different angle, from different angles, and also gives you food for thought about reasons why breaking three of corporate mantras, uh, because there's so much. It's like it's like just there's nothing but McDonald's commercials on TV all day when you know that there's much better, and or you're unaware that there's much better out there, and then you just start getting into that world, and you start thinking, why the hell was I buying McDonald's all the time and listening to those stupid commercials, right? So there's that. All right, Patrick, you take care. Thank you for showing up. I want to thank all you guys for showing up in this live stream. Um, Coming up here, like I said, we've got the Fender bass review. I'll do that towards the end of the week, maybe even next Saturday. I have been requested to join in on a live stream in the States, which is going to be my 4 a.m. here. I'll try to work that out coming up on Tuesday. Um, I'll let you guys know more about that in my community page. Yeah, that's about it. I'm going to go to bed because last night around 2 o'clock there was a thunderstorm, and I mean the weather here in Amsterdam is off the charts weird. I mean we've fallen back into winter again. The low tonight, and I turned off the heat. Now I'm sitting here hugging myself because it's freezing in here just that quick. The low tonight is 1, and the high tomorrow is like 9, 8 or 9. We have fallen. There is no spring. Spring has not yet sprung. I was out there today planting and doing my garden work, cleaning up my garden, but and I planted a few things, but I have no hope. I have very slim hopes on any of that stuff sprouting anytime soon, especially with these temperatures. The earth needs to get to a constant at least 15 to 18 C in order to spark that kind of germination. And I'm just not getting it. So it's going to be a paltry garden, I'm predicting this year again. But the weather has just been terrible, and I didn't get much sleep last night because of that storm. So I'm tired. So I'm going to go to bed. And I hope that you guys, whether you're in the morning, afternoon, or evening, you enjoy your morning, your afternoon, or you too put yourself to bed and have a good rest. Hope you guys take care of yourselves. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join in into this live stream. Again, I don't have merchandise other than what I have up on Asanoki's Bandcamp page to support this channel. If you do go over there and look at the merch that we do have, two albums of good music. If you want to support this channel directly, go to bandcamp.com. Look up Asanoki, look up Mike McWilliams. You'll get to my page and support this channel by buying the music. And I do appreciate it. Thank you, Seamus. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Patrick, Don Juan, Mickey Newman. Let's go up here. Tommy Mack, Michael Watson, Anthony, Ben, all you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to join in tonight. I will see you guys in a few days, Wednesday night hump. You until then, be good. Take care of yourselves. See you later. Bye bye.